Hello, my friends. Welcome to the channel. I am Nicole and I live in India. And today I'm going to watch a video that I thought looked kind of interesting. Now, most of you, if you guys are watching the channel, already know that this isn't my day job. I have a full-time job. I work in IT in Bangalore, like a million or two or three or four or 5 million other people. And this video is Indian web design cheap, but it works. Oh, shocking. And here's why. So obviously, I can understand why it's cheap. I totally know why it works because we have amazing developers here. But let's go ahead and see what this video is giving for their recommendations, or I don't know, their viewpoint. If you haven't already, please give me your like, please give me your subscribe, and let's go.
Indian web design. It's cheap, but it works. Here's why. Take a guess. What do you think this website is used for?
SBI, the State Bank of India.
This is the homepage for the State Bank of India. With over 500 million customers, it is the largest bank in India. And this is the website they use. Why?
India as a market, I think, works on rich content where we'll want information.
It's really cheap. I don't know how they managed to do that.
In this video, I refer to cheap as financial affordability. Looking at the tech and web design history of India will answer.
That's good to know that that's how she is quantifying it. Financial affordability. I appreciate that rather than cheap.
Answer these questions. I mean, does a website still need to look good if it works? Okay, it's time. With 1.44 billion people, India is now the most populated country on Earth, which means a poorly designed software in India can cost up to millions, even billions of dollars. So the design has to work. But here's the thing. In India, there are 36 entities split into 806 districts, each with their own unique culture and demographics. That's a lot of districts. How can someone create an effective website that works for everyone, yet keep the costs low? To understand how we got here, we gotta go back a few years. It's 2005, and you're a teenager in Bengaluru. You receive your first phone.
Actually, I'm not a teenager. I'm an adult, and I'm almost coming to Bangalore in 1 year.
The Nokia 1100. You're a teenager, so you play with it, chuck it at a rock, you get scared, and when you go pick it up, you noticed a weird thing. The rock broke, but the phone was in one piece.
So, fun fact, I actually worked for a company that developed tracking applications. It was one of the first GPS mapping and trapping applications for cell phones. And these Nokia phones were next level. Like, there was one that they ran over with a truck and it still worked. They could be dropped from huge heights. They could be run over. They were really made and built to last.
The Nokia 1100, it is indestructible essentially. You could throw it anywhere and the other thing would be destroyed.
That's Shivam Gupta, a Google UX designer who grew up in India, now based in New York City. He explains that between the popular tech devices, laptops, PCs, tablets, phones, in India, the mobile phone rose to the top. Indeed, according to sources, 78% of market share exists on mobile phones in India, compared to 57% in USA. Just like China, affordable smartphones flooded the Indian market.
Prices came down and all of these like different brands, not your big brands like Google, Apple, Samsung, but like other brands that came into the market that were offering cheaper smartphones.
And this means one thing. Tech became accessible. All of a sudden, people from a wide range of socioeconomic backgrounds could access the internet.
Which is amazing. You see this on YouTube, from villagers posting, you know, amazing content to young school kids being able to attend school remotely and being able to like submit assignments and everything all from a phone or even just a tablet. It is fabulous. And it has opened doors all throughout India, and I love it.
which means by the 2010s, companies adapted to this shift by designing websites for mobile phones.
For example, a large chunk of the Indian population skipped the desktop phase.
That's Parag Gupta, a Google UX designer based in Bengaluru, India.
Like their first internet device was a mobile phone, because of which you would find a lot more design focused on a mobile view rather than a desktop view.
And these mobile view websites aren't just gonna appear out of thin air. We need designers to make them, which means a booming tech economy.
What do you do?
I am a UX designer.
What do you do for a living?
I'm a UX designer.
You guys do?
I'm a designer, UI UX designer.
What did you study and how do you get a job?
Let's check my bank account. Have you tried our new simplified and intuitive business banking platform? I have not. Let's see. So, I've been going to the same bank for the past 20 years, and the website looks like this. Bro, it's 2024. What is that? Why do some websites never change?
India as a market, I think, works on rich content where we want information. We don't want to go around and dig for it. We don't want to go and search for it. We want it upfront a lot of times. And that's where I think websites play a great role, because they can just lay out everything up in front.
But turns out, this maximal design often works well for South and East Asian users. Look at Yahoo Japan. There is a lot going on here, but based on scientific research, this makes sense. Both India and Japan have high context cultures, which communicate in ways that are implicit, nuanced, contrasting low context cultures where you would be direct, to the point, and explicit. This study looked at how people of high versus low context culture perceived and enjoyed ads of different complexity. And when both participants saw the same complicated looking ad, the person of higher context culture enjoyed it more and was like, it's not that complicated, compared to the lower context culture, who enjoyed the ad less and perceived it as more complex. So in a high context culture like India, it's actually okay if some websites look like this.
Well, this is really interesting. I've never thought about it that way. I have definitely heard about high context and low context cultures, especially attending, diversity, inclusivity trainings for my employment, for work. But I hadn't actually thought that it would filter into the design of websites. Sometimes you just get stuck in the way you think of something. This is one of those things, but this is really interesting and it makes sense.
When you learn things like progressive disclosure, think, do I need to progressively disclose? Do I need to present things one at a time slowly? When sometimes it's better to give it all at once. And although this website might seem outdated, or some might even say ugly, if it works, why fix it? Not just in Indian web design, but we often see this in the public sector. Banks, hospitals, public facilities. These entities have limited resources, and they need to serve a ton of people. So not much money can be spent on how a website looks. But that doesn't mean this doesn't serve the fundamental purpose of getting people to where they need. Users have adapted to this design, and actually the last thing you want to do is change it. In this case, familiarity might be more important than a new modern design. And honestly, sometimes it's the same for Western designs. For instance, Reddit. It's low-key kind of ugly. It's not the cleanest design. There's a lot going on. We've got 3 columns with lots of information. It gives us the juice.
Low-key, kind of ugly.
So we don't care. Users will adapt. I'm curious, what do you think about this? The fact that some of these websites are just not updated, but they still work. Also, there's so much diversity in languages, literacy level, age, tech skills, and socioeconomic status in India that if they change a design that's used by a lot of people, it takes people time to adapt. Speaking of socioeconomic, India has been able to keep the cost of technology really low.
In India, data is super cheap. For about the cost of coffee, you could get close to unlimited data in a month. It's really cheap. I don't know how they managed to do that.
With the Indian market being a price-sensitive economy, it makes sense why some companies would rather have a less modern but still usable design in exchange for a lower cost. Now, you clicked onto this video probably wondering how web design in India might be different from the rest of the world. But here's the truth. There is no one Indian design. India is incredibly diverse and different between regions, so we cannot generalize a design that works for the entire country. I mean, this is the case for all countries. Let's come back to this map. India has 806 districts. This is how geography impacts design. For example, color depends on culture. In many parts of India, white symbolizes peace and purity, and people would wear it at funerals or festivals like Holi. But in other parts of India, people would wear bright colors to funerals. Bright pinks, bright blues, bright oranges. So before you slap on a color gradient on your product, understand, what does that color mean for your target users? Another important factor is the user's access to technology.
India uses a tier system to classify their cities. Essentially, they have cities going from tier 1 to tier 6, and they're generally classified by population. That's the official classification. So a tier 1 city will have 100,000 inhabitants or more. Tier 2 city will have 50 to 100,000 inhabitants, and so on.
Tier 4, I guess, would be like a very small town. And so you have people coming from these places. They don't come from means, right? They don't have a good family name. They don't have connections. They didn't go to a good school.
Some users may not even have access to phones or tablets, so keep that in mind. Experience design is more than the screen. Think from a macro perspective. How do we make products that work globally? It's not an easy job. Think of it like this. In design, you have a main quest and side quests. The main quest is to design and build the actual website, and the side quests are understanding the users, understanding their culture when building products. There is no one-size-fits-all approach to design, and that's why it's fun. Instead of following a cookie-cutter design process, why are we using the Gestalt principle? Who are we really designing for? And why are we building this product in the first place? Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about all of this? Feel free to correct me, share resources. Treat this as an ongoing collaborative research project. As Roman King Marcus Aurelius says, everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. When you're building something, whose perspective are you taking? And is that the only perspective?
Wow, well, that actually was, I hate to say this, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I really thought that they were going to focus on things about how it was cheap or, and that it works, but they really brought in an aspect of it, like I had said, that I hadn't even thought about who you're designing for and, just the diversity quotient in, a high contrast, low contrast culture. I really appreciate that perspective. It really gave me something to think about. And her last question about who you're designing for is a really important question, and it gets into a lot of questions, or it opens up a lot of questions about if you're only designing for a particular race or culture or type of person, you can lose out on that. And this type of high contrast culture design really makes certain that it's more inclusive to everyone that might want to actually to use it. So I was attending a conference a few weeks ago, and they had talked about the developers of some virtual reality device, and they had completed the development, and they were doing tests. And one of the test subjects had red curly hair, but her hair wouldn't show up within that virtual reality because they had never actually designed it for someone with red and curly hair. Yeah. So, when you are doing website design and design in general, you really have to think out of your own box and make certain that you are inclusive of all of these different things. And I think this really showcased that. So this was a great watch. So if you like the reaction, please do give a like, please give a subscribe, and as always, I love you and bye-bye.